Hey, welcome back to the show, Total Financial Solutions Safer Money Hour. I'm Arif Halaby. Thanks for joining us. Every week at this time, we're talking about your family's finances. You can go to hometownstation.com, click on Total Financial Solutions, send us a question. We're happy to answer those on the air here. Special guest today is Logan Halaby. Logan is, about 6 months or so, been working with Total Financial Solutions. As you can tell, same last name. He's my oldest son. Logan, one of the things that impressed me the most as a young person, and we talk about this a lot, that your family conversation at the dinner table really dictates the tone and the success and the wealth of what your children can expect. And the happiness and the values, it's all about, in my opinion, whether it's breakfast table, right? For us, for a long time, breakfast was the family dinner or the family meal. But whatever that meal is, and why I share that with you is because I remember we would hold our Total Money School classes, and we're going to have some more of those financial classes coming up here. Stay tuned this summer. But we would hold some of our classes, and Logan must have been, 10 or maybe 12 years old, something like that. And he's sitting in the classes, and we were talking about why McDonald's didn't have onions on their hamburgers. People said, what? Yeah, why didn't they put onions on their hamburgers? I don't know if you remember why, if you remember the answer you gave.
Not enough onions in the world?
Basically, without there being enough onions in the world, McDonald's, when they said we're going to do tomatoes, they had to literally go with different names and buy tomato farms and sign contracts to lock down the supply of tomatoes, because once they added tomatoes on the McDLT, if you remember that, it changed everything. Suddenly, tomato farmers that were in the dumps financially were now taken off financially. Yet a lot of farmers that grew potatoes, if they can sign a deal with McDonald's, they're just like the Walmarts of the world. They're not going to have a whole lot of profit, but you're going to have a steady stream of business, and you're going to have to be efficient and deliver a product. But when it came to the onions, I said, if there's not enough onions in the world, what would happen to the price of onions? And Logan, being his little 10-year-old, 12-year-old self, said, it would be more expensive than gold.
Well, some form of gold, perhaps, but
yeah. And I thought that's exactly the understanding that you want to have, is the supply and demand culture, right? If there's a lot of things, the price will go down. If there's less of things, the price goes up because of supply and demand. How many people want things versus how many things are available of whatever product. You'll see that across the board, because if you're going to start saving for your future, whatever that is, remember this: at age 59 and a half, under current law, the IRS waives all of the penalties, not the taxes, but the penalties to take money out of your retirement account. 401k accounts, your traditional IRAs. So your retirement accounts, no penalties at 59 and a half. You'll still pay taxes if it's a taxable account, but no penalties. But the second age that kicks in, people will say, and sometimes they confuse us, is age 62. So what happens at age 62? That's the time when you can begin to take out Social Security. Right? So it has nothing to do with your retirement account, it's Social Security. You don't have to start taking it out at 62, but if you do, it's a bit of a discounted price, meaning you're going to take a little bit less than what the full retirement age. Now, based on your age, your full retirement age either was 65, 65 and a half, 66, 67 is today one of the for folks my age and others. 67 means that's when you get 100% of your retirement dollars that they say. Now, if you keep it in there, every year it goes up 8%. So at age 70, for everybody, that is, under current law, the maximum Social Security you will receive. It won't go up anymore past that date. So if you are 70, 71, you might as well turn it on. You're not going to receive any more. Now, you don't have to, but that's the most your Social Security, unless the cost of living goes up. So what's the next age? 70 and a half. So what happens at 70 and a half? Now, I don't know about you, Logan, but we never celebrated half birthdays.
Well, I did sometimes, just because I had a summer birthday, and so I wasn't left out with all of the other children. But that stopped at about age 7.
Oh, that sounds sad. So you just had, I guess, Christmas, because of July, you would have a Christmas birthday. It's a way to get extra presents.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But the 70 and a half, here's how it works. I'm going to simplify it for you, but I'm going to tell you the system so that you realize how, I don't know, how messed up it is. Maybe that's the right word. Okay, it's for your retirement accounts. You cannot defer taking payments out past age 70 and a half. So it's the year following the year you turn 70 and a half, on or before April 1st. So how messed up is this? I'm born in March, so I would turn 70 in March, and then the same year I would turn 70 and a half. Okay, so that means that the next April 1st, I have to start taking my money out. At least the current number is about 3.6%. Check with your CPA. Everybody's a little different, so check with your CPA. But if you're born in the second half of the year, like Logan is born in July, that means he would turn 70 in July, 70 and a half the next year. So then he has one more year before, by April 1st, that he has to take his first payment out. I know, did I drive your head a little crazy here? Think of it like this. Make sure you open your mail. Because if you're a client of ours, and most institutions, now sometimes we find that they make a mistake, but most institutions will send you letters, they will correspond with you, and they will force you, if you will, through letters and emails and maybe even phone calls. Our office will call you and say, hey, listen, you're going to be taking money out of here. You better, if you need to, don't. Because if you don't, now you don't have to. You can take what the number is, what's required from another account. But if you don't take that out from the place that's required, 50% penalty. Okay, do you understand what I just said? That's huge. Okay. So if you've come to some of our dinner workshops in the past, and we're going to be advertising those a little bit more and kind of telling you about those in the upcoming weeks, but you'll hear me say, who makes the rules, rich or poor people? People will say, they kind of smile. Oh, that's cute, Arif. I go, no, really, who makes the rules, rich people or poor? Well, of course they say rich. Come on. I say, if you go historically, every single generation, rich people have always made the rules. Do you know that? It doesn't matter if you were Cleopatra and her buddies, if you were an Egyptian king of any sort, Attila the Hun, Genghis Khan, Napoleon, all their friends, their families, they did fine. They all made some money. They all had special rules apply to them. So where does it come into play in the United States? Because rich people have made the rules, and they still do. But you see, in America, they made this little thing called the Constitution that says the rules apply to everyone. Now, some of you chuckle and you go, oh, that's nice. No. They don't have to tell you them. But they apply to everybody if you find them out. And so now today, with these magical internet devices that we all have on our hip and the free Wi-Fi everywhere, all of that stuff is free. You can go free Wi-Fi and get a free Obama phone, right? They're advertising those things all over the place. And what can you do? You now have access to the information and the rules that rich people play by. So when I say that, what's the rule? So do you think that you can take money out of your retirement accounts prior to age 59 and a half and not pay a fee? Say yes.
Yes.
Yes, because rich people made these rules, folks. Do you think rich people want to leave money in their retirement account and not be forced to take money out at 70 and a half and pay a penalty? Say yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you see the difference? Rich people make the rules. So if you want to take money out at age 35 and not pay the 10% penalty, you can. They have rules. They have a formula. It's all about understanding the rules. Because you're all playing the game. Logan, we talked about this one time where you're playing soccer, but with basketball rules. Because there's a net on one side, and people do that. So we have to learn how to play the game by the rules in which the game we are actually playing. Is that clear?
Of course. Otherwise, you're the one stuck in the penalty box when you thought you were doing everything right.
Yeah, and that's called bankruptcy or judgments or collections. And so think of the ball as if it's money, and there's a net on both sides. But you think, oh, there's a net. No. It's a soccer net, not a basketball net. So every time you pick up the ball, money, and you kind of go a little bit, and the whistle blows and you get in trouble. You go, oh, how dare I think I should be wealthy, successful, have a business, learn this, buy rental property, whatever it is that's your financial thing. And you say, never mind, I'm just not good at it. I'll just go back to work, get my little job, work 40 hours a week, ask for permission to use the bathroom, raise my hand when it's time to go to You go, really, folks? Come on. You can be wealthy and successful regardless of the career choice. And so I want to encourage you to know what the rules are, and you can do that. The internet is chock full of information. There's books, there's counter opinions, right? So now you know the ages in which certain rules apply. And those ages, they apply to folks no matter what you think and what you want. We had a gentleman, a client that came in recently, and he said, these particular dollars, am I going to be ending up paying taxes on this money? And we said, well, look, I don't know those rules, but what your situation is, but I can tell you this. You better be paying your taxes, whatever it is. And he says, well, I know, because here he is, just finished an audit, and the audit was somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 he owed. Well, it's not a small amount of money.
Not a very nice surprise.
Play by the rules. You pay your taxes when you're supposed to. Know what the rules are of the game that you're playing, because everybody gets paid in money. It doesn't matter what your age is. So, Logan, let's give folks one of the things that we've talked about, and this is kind of key because for a lot of us, we kind of take this part for granted.
Well, yes, of course. When you think of life insurance, it's something that often you don't think about or have until suddenly you need it, and then it's too late. The nice thing about life insurance, though, is it's something that's a contract. So it's something that once you start it, those same rules apply no matter what happens, as long as you hold up your part of the bargain, which is paying the premiums and keeping it alive.
Yeah, we've talked about that, where you open up an insurance policy, and from that moment on, the insurance company is liable. And we talk about 30-year term policies. A 30-year term, think about that. 30 years, you might be 25 years old or 30 years old, and you're paying whatever price, and it's going to be pretty low at that age. And the insurance company doesn't know where you're going to live, what new hobbies you're going to take, what job you're going to have, whether or not your risk, if you're sitting in an office versus being a steel worker on big buildings, those are different risks. People get hurt or pass away, probably a little bit more when you're in the field of construction than if you're in an office environment. So the insurance company takes a risk on you for 30 years. And what happens to the price, Logan? Does it go up if you have a 30-year guarantee?
If you have a guaranteed policy, then the premium stays the same. Whatever you paid when you were age 20, 30, whatever it is when you signed up, that's what you pay for the life of the policy, whether it's 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, whatever it is.
And so why is that important to part of the conversation about building wealth? Because you're going to have a family. And I'll give you another example. We have a lady who's gone on and received her master's degree and probably on to PhD, and she has a significant amount of student loans. And a big portion of those her parents signed up for. Now, she's paying them, but her parents are hooked to these things, and some of them her parents borrowed money in other places that are not directly student loans. So if she passes away, and look horrible to think about, but women in their 20s and 30s pass away, or 40s, not all the time, but it does happen. And she says, I don't want to leave that burden to my parents. So, meanwhile, she's paying for the student loans, but what she's also going to do is buy a life insurance policy so that if she were to pass away, the debt that her parents incurred, instead of carrying that into retirement, it will be paid off by that insurance policy. Okay, so part of that is an understanding of, what your responsibility as a parent and what your responsibility as a young person. And you need to know that, sometimes the dollars are not a one-way event. Just because your parents paid for you doesn't end.
And she's in a situation where, the life insurance is active even after the student loans are paid off. So then going forward, she's going to have that same kind of protection and benefit for when she has a family and gets started in that realm, or a business to help support that and keep it alive. If she unexpectedly passes away, she has the protection from that going forward with a little forethought.
Yeah, and she can change the beneficiary. So right now, she's paying it and she's the owner, but her parents are the ones that are the beneficiaries. But now if she gets married or have children, she wants her husband to be the beneficiary. It's one form. Change it. It's done. Right? Or like you said, Logan, if the student loans are paid off. Now, there's another type of life insurance become very controversial over the years, and rightfully so. A lot of insurance agents sold this in a way in which many would say was not in the best interest of the consumer. And it is called cash value or permanent insurance. A lot of these policies are built to say, oh, we want to have life insurance for my entire life, because a 10-year policy is 10 years, 20-year, 20, 30, etc. But a life policy for the rest of your life, you can have. But would you think they're a bit more expensive?
Probably. The life insurance company has higher costs.
That's right. And they're going to insure you forever. I mean, do you understand that is a very long time? It's one thing to say, I'm going to insure you for the next 15 minutes. Or like a lot of people buy that airline flight insurance, I don't know if they're still selling it in those boxes, and you go to the airport and you fill it out and you put it in, and if you die in a plane, that it's paid for. That's some of the most expensive insurance. Even though it might only be $5 for $100,000, if you take a look at how long you're on an average flight, 3 or 4 or 5 hours, and you do the math and extrapolate that over a year, that's a very expensive policy. But it's $5, and who knows, if you crash and you die, and it's the way it goes, your family will have $100,000 or $1 million or whatever you sign up for. Well, because the time duration is so small, just the time you're in the air, that's a pretty expensive journey. But if you are thinking about, and you're saying, well, wait a second, I have life insurance for the next 20 or 30 or 40 years of my life, insurance company has to pay for that. So permanent plans, make sure if you're doing it for life insurance or you're doing it for the benefits of the cash value, which is a savings portion, which you can build cash value tax-free, and that gives you some time to have that. Give me another thing that I see, Logan, across the board, to build wealth when you're in your 20s, 30s, even 50s. It's not too late.
Well, you want to think of in terms of the income you're going to need, not just a magic number of with lots of zeros, whether it's 100,000 or 1 million that you think you're going to need to last the entire time. A better way to think of it is how much you'll need on a monthly basis or a yearly basis, because that's more predictable. You're already kind of doing that now.
Yeah, that's right. And passive income is a way to do that. So what is passive income? It means that you are somewhere and your money is making you money somewhere else. In other words, you're not involved on a day-to-day basis. You could be on a beach, you could be at your job, you could be sitting in front of your computer, you could be at home, you could be asleep. And your money is making money for you. So we see a lot of retirement plans, if you will, and people planning for passive income being a big part of that retirement income. So things like rental property or commercial building or apartment buildings, where you have people, they go to work every Monday morning, they're telling you, hey, I'm showing up, and they're making money at their job, paying their rent, and you get paid from it. So that is an example of passive income. Start building up that. One of the things that I tell my kids is never sell a house that you're going to buy to live in. One of the biggest mistakes I made is I sold our first and our second home. We shouldn't have done that. I should have saved it. Why? Because they've gone up in value. We could have rented them for a reasonable amount and could have made positive cash flow on it. Now, it's not easy. If the water heater breaks, you have to pay for it. If there's a new roof, you have to pay for it. So there's times when you're going to have to come up with the cost. So it's not an easy adventure, no question about it. But over time, building that wealth is very key to what you're trying to do, and passive income can come from that. So if you have a house, you have a condo, usually people start off in a condo or a townhome, perfect. Consider keeping that as part of your wealth building for 10, 15, 20 years from now. One of the other things we see, Logan, across the board is the spending can sometimes get out of control. So tell me about this.
Well, spending is something that's so easy now with credit cards, a simple swipe, or if you got the new chip cards, just put it in, and then you can pay for pretty much anything you want. So that can get out of hand pretty quickly if you've seen the kid in the candy store kind of mentality. Well, that doesn't go away, just the candy is now something a little bit more pricey.
Yeah.
It could be a car, could be
motorcycles, boats, planes, yeah. Look, we see it when people say, hey, listen, I'm trying to build up my wealth. Let me give you a good example. We have a client, between him and his wife, they make almost $280,000 a year. Okay, after taxes, that's $18,000 a month. Okay, I don't know about you, but I think that's a pretty darn good living. you can do pretty well on $18,000 a month, right? Raise your hand if you can't. I'm okay with that, but you're not living in my world. And yet, they are always in credit card debt. They are always broke. They are always borrowing from their retirement accounts or taking from what I say their future is, right? Why is that occurring? It isn't because they don't earn enough money. Your life is not about, oh, I need to make more money and more money and more money. It's about managing the money in which you are currently being paid. And that sometimes means scaling down your spending, reducing how much you're spending, not just at the everyday place, but grocery stores and restaurants, but scaling down where you're spending on an irresponsible way. You don't need to do that.
Scaling down on your spending and practicing budgeting, it's like any other skill or a muscle. You have to work on it. And it's something you're definitely going to need in retirement because you're not going to be making as much. You know that healthcare costs and other things are going to be going up. So you have to plan for that ahead of time. Practice working and flexing that muscle of not spending too much, knowing what's reasonable, what's not, planning ahead, making allowances for big purchases. So if you have to get a new car or upgrade your car because it's falling apart and it's starting to cost more to keep running, keep having to put new parts in it, then plan ahead on that. See how much longer you can make the current one last. And then when you go for the new one, don't go for the brand new top of the line if that's not something that makes sense for you.
Yeah, and what we see time and again is people, I'm surprised property taxes come and I use my tax refund to pay for. Look, property taxes are going to be here next year and the year after. So is your car insurance. So is Christmas. So, right, these these expenses that come across the board, consider for a minute, what if you were to take, let's say your property taxes are $2,400 a year. Well, you know that. And you know that if you took $100 out of each paycheck and you put it in a special savings account and you kept doing that and doing that and doing that, there you go. At the end of the year, you just write a check or transfer the money. Because part of it is to understand that there are expenses that are going to be surprises, no question about it. But there are predictable expenses. And by doing that and scaling down your spending in the predictable areas by not making them emergencies, you can sit down and say, well, how am I going to plan step by step so I don't get upside down? I want to cover a few other things when we come back. What are some of the one or two things that you can do in your 50s and your 60s, maybe even your 40s? Is it not too late? I don't think it is. I don't think it ever is too late. Especially today, people can retire and do retire in their 70s. What used to be 60 is now 70, 72, 75. So we're healthier, we're living longer, and we're doing things and living a healthier life. That means our quality of life is going to be better. We'll cover that when we come back and a whole lot more on Total Financial Solutions Safer Money Hour on AM 1220 KHTS. Hey, welcome back to the show, Total Financial Solutions Safer Money Hour. I'm Arif Halaby along with Logan Halaby talking about your family's finances. Hey, what is it going to take for you to retire? What are some of the things you can do in a step-by-step approach? And you've heard us talk about annuities in the past. Some people hate them, some love them. Everybody has an opinion on them usually. And I share that with you because just recently, in the last day or so, a client came in with her friend and they said, we heard about this. Basically, they're saying things and or having a conversation that annuities are or aren't a particular way. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about because that doesn't exist with this particular account. There are annuities like that where you give up your money and they give you a payment, and if it's an emergency, tough luck, you only get the next month's payment and the next month and the next month. Those aren't things that we do very often, probably, I don't know, once every couple of years out of 300 or 400. So it isn't something that is a common part of, at least not what we do. Certainly there might be people out there that do that. So let's break down and talk about what an annuity is. First of all, it's a conversation and a contract between you and an insurance company. There are 3 different types of annuities. One of them is a fixed annuity. Acts like a CD.
Yes. It's a CD, but instead of going through a bank, it's through an insurance company, which benefits and drawbacks. But basically, you give them your money, whether it's $1,000, $10,000, $100,000, depends on the account and the contract and what's involved in the specifics. But generally, what that means is that they will guarantee you a certain amount every year, whether it's
of interest.
Exactly. Yeah. So, if you have $100, 2% interest guaranteed, then first year $2 is what you'll get, and then it builds on itself from there. And then
let's think of it this way for a minute. This is just like a CD at a bank in the sense that there's a fixed amount of interest. It doesn't matter what the stock market's doing or not doing, or bond market, or price of tea in China. None of that matters. If it's a 5-year or 2-year or 7-year, it doesn't matter. The price or the interest, if it's 3%, for example, it's 3% every single year, come heck or high water. And that's important to have as part of your package, maybe, is to have a level of guarantee. So that's a fixed annuity. The variable annuity goes out and it goes directly into the stock market. So you have your money that goes into the market, and an insurance company offers some guarantees and some protections, and for a fee, sometimes a significant fee. But when you add it all up, sometimes I have seen fees as high or more than 3.5%. That's not uncommon, actually. So think about this as, is this something that makes sense for you? Well, maybe for some of you. But be very careful. Understand, when we did an account recently, we had a client come in, and they had the account for 7 years, and they had made about $16,000 in the last 7 years in profit. Okay, not bad. It's $140,000, so it's gone up and down. So, all right, it's better than losing. I got you. But the fees on that account were somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000. So do you understand that here they are, the broker, the company is making themselves $30,000 plus, I think it was 36, but around $30,000. In the same period of time, the money you worked for, that you had set aside, had earned you about $11,000 or $12,000, $16,000. Whose money is this? Who worked for it? Who put it in there? So remember that part of this is to understand what's right for you. Meet with your CPA, your tax advisor. If you have an attorney, if that's important for the system, go and meet with them. I don't want you to make decisions or choices that can hurt you. And part of this is to be informed. There isn't a product that's always bad or always good for anybody. They're all created for certain situations. The third one, which is what our firm focuses on, is called fixed indexed annuities. So what is a fixed indexed annuity? Very simple. A fixed indexed annuity is, again, because it's an annuity, it's a contract between you and the insurance company. And it works like this. If the market goes up, you go up with it. If it goes up, you can go up with it. But if it goes down, you don't lose a penny. And there are two features that make that work, two catches, if you will. One of those is there is a cap on your return, somewhere around 12%, 10%, something like that. That's the most. If the cap is 10%, for example, that's the most you're going to ever earn. It doesn't matter if the market goes up 20, 30, 40, that's the most. So what happens if the market drops the very next day? With the variable annuity, your account value can drop. With the fixed annuity, doesn't matter, because remember, you're just like a CD. You just go straight up every year. If it is a fixed indexed annuity, you go up with the market, and if the market drops the next day, you do not lose a penny. So your rate of return is going to be somewhere between 0 and 10, 0 and 12, something like that every year. But the average is about 3 to 6. It's kind of where you're going to see the sweet spot. And the other catch that makes this work is there is a time commitment. If you are going to pull all of your money out prior to the end of the time you select, you may pay a fee. Depends on if it's medical. Certain companies allow you to have nursing home or long-term care, things like that, where they'll waive some or all of the fees. But if the time you select, if you're going to pull out no more than 10% per year, beginning 1 year from now, you don't pay a fee, there's no monthly fee, there's no deposit fee, there's no quarterly fee. Now look, not all fixed indexed annuities are the same, just like not all cars or banks, it doesn't matter. They're not all the same. What does that mean to you? Double check. There's some out there that do have fees. There's some out there that do have lower caps, right? There's some out there. So just know what you're doing, know what you're buying, but understand you can have a retirement account. Like, I'm starting to hear it all over the radios. You know, Logan, it's funny listening to radio shows and different things. You can always hear, you want your money to go up with the market and never go down? What is it? It's a fixed indexed annuity. Most of the time, I'll bet you, especially if I hear the guy, I kind of know some of these guys out there. And that's what we do. If it's right for you, fantastic. If it isn't, then you go somewhere else. So know what you're doing, because part of what we want to do when you're in your 50s and 60s is realize that safety and preservation of principal is very, very important. Not going backwards is the key.
Exactly. Once you've made the money in your working years, you don't suddenly have a replacement for that right after you retire. You've got to find it somewhere. And if you lose something, where are you going to get it from? You can't go back to work making the same amount. Where are you going to go? It's something you have to plan for, and a certain degree of stability and safety where it's locked in and you're not going to lose anything is quite helpful for peace of mind, for being able to plan for the future, and better quality of life because you're not stressed out all the time.
And you know what I see, Logan, regularly is people will go out and forget that while they're working, your job is paying your income. So your assets, your savings, you know, if they go up and down, it doesn't really affect you as much because your income is stable. But when you're retired, you want your assets, your retirement accounts, to not go up and down. You want that to be stable. And then your income, I'm going to work part-time. Oh, that's okay. But now your assets are providing your income, your chunk of dollars, your savings. And that is important because when you go to work and you're in your working years, your mortgage doesn't go up and down, right? It's the same. It's your rent. It doesn't go up and down. Your car insurance, it's what it is. So you need to make sure that your income is solid, but so is your retirement dollars, because that will help you, I think, in my opinion, save and build to what you're trying to do for your future, right? Because that's important.
And this is back to where the budgeting and knowing your expenses comes in handy, because if you don't have the knowledge and what your goal is. It's hard to run a race and be able to pace yourself if you don't know what the end goal is. Running a sprint is very different from running a marathon. Time frame, how fast you have to go. It's nice if you can run at 20 miles an hour like Usain Bolt or some of these Olympic sprinters, but can you keep that up for 20 miles or longer?
You know, what we love talking about here is your retirement life and your financial life and ways to help you manage your financial future and retirement choices. Be very careful with what you do with your money. This is your family's future. You can always go to Total Financial Solutions. Just go to hometownstation.com and click on Total Financial Solutions. Thanks for listening. I'm Arif Halaby with Logan Halaby on AM 1220 KHTS.